Hello everyone. Let's read this problem together. Jesse rolls 2 dice. What is the sample space, which means the possible outcomes? Represent the answer by constructing a tree diagram. So, they are asking us for all the possible outcomes or all of the combinations that could happen with the 2 dice. So first, let's imagine the dice and what they would be able to land on. So as I look at the dice, I can see that one outcome will be from one of the dice and the other outcome will be from the other one. So we have to consider the numbers on each dice and count each dice separately. So let's make a key for what we're going to call each dice. So we are going to call dice 1 and dice 2 so that we can make the combinations. And we're color coding, so I'm making dice 1 red and dice 2 blue. Now let's think about all the possible numbers that could be on either one of these dice. So the numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. When we roll the 2 dice, we're going to get 2 numbers. The first number from dice 1 will be the first number in the outcome, and then the second number from dice 2 will be the second number of the outcome. So we are trying to have 2 number outcomes, and we're going to see what are all the possible combinations. So let's start with dice 1 and showing what could happen when I look at dice 1 after they have been rolled. So now we have sketched all of the possibilities for my first die. But remember, there is a second die. And so no matter what I got on the first die, the second die also has the numbers 1 through 6. And so that combination is going to pair up with each one of these possible outcomes. So let's take a look at what that would look like for the first dice. So for my first dice, I have 1. And then when I throw the blue second dice, I could also land on 1. But I could land on 2. Or I could land on 3. Or 4. Or 5. Or 6. Whatever happened on the first die does not affect what happens on the second die, but I do have to account for both dice. So I'm going to make my tree diagram by connecting the first die to the possible outcome of that second die. So I could get 1 with 1, or I could get 1 with 2, or I could get 1 with 3, or I could get 1 with 4, one with 5, or 1 with 6. Do you see how we're following an organized pattern? So now I'm going to look at what if I didn't land on 1 for my first die? What if that first die had landed on 2? Would that change what could happen on the second dice? No, it wouldn't, right? We would still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Just like we did with the red die, but we have to separate it because the red die we had to put them each separate, but you see how we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the red die? But now when we put the blue die, we're going to put it as the second combination part of the first part that we already put there. So now I'm going to have to do 1 through 6 for the second die. And we'll connect it. 2 with 1, 2 with 2, 2 with 3, 2 with 4, 2 with 5, 2 with 6. Let's go ahead and write those possibilities down. Okay, and then we will continue doing this for each red die that I have marked here as the first possible outcome. I'm going to create the second set of possible outcomes. Okay, so now we have all of our outcomes. We can see that the first die is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then the second die can also land on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, making all of these possibilities from 1, 1, all the way to 6, 6. How many possibilities is there? How many outcomes? How many combinations? How could we figure that out? We could count them, that's right. And if we were going to count from the T diagram, we would count the outermost section. Okay, so in this case, we will count the blue dice. Or I can use the fundamental counting principle that says that the total combinations or possible outcomes can be found by multiplying the possibilities for your first event. So for my first dice, I have 6 possibilities, 1 through 6. And you can multiply that by the possibilities of your second event, which for the blue dice also have the numbers 1 through 6. So there are 6 possibilities. And 6 times 6 will yield or give us 36. So there should be 36 possible outcomes. And we can see here that we have 6 sets of 6, right? Because our first die had 6 and our second die also had 6. And we also want to make sure that when we were making our tree diagram, we stayed organized. So we didn't jump around and go from one to another thinking randomly of different possibilities. We stayed organized so that we would make sure to get each and every single outcome. Also, at this point, it would be important to have them in order because they could ask us for any outcome where both numbers were even. And if they did that, we would know that we would not be looking at anything in the first group or anything in the third group or in the fifth group because that already starts with an odd number. So pay attention to those keywords that they're going to ask you in the question as exactly what they want. In this case, our question is just what is the sample space and represent the answer using a tree diagram. And we've made a tree diagram using our dice with red and blue dice, and we have all 36 possible combinations. So now it's going to be your turn to try one.